The Las Vegas Raiders recently lost to the Denver Broncos, and some fans have been talking about how Max Crosby and Brock Bowers didn't do much in that game. Even head coach Sean Payton seemed to touch on this, and some people think he was throwing shade at both players. Let's take a listen to what Payton had to say, and then discuss it afterward. Payton explained that the best teams are prepared for 13 or 14 of their 17 regular season games, and even when they're not on top of their game, they still manage to win. He mentioned that the Broncos from last year wouldn't have won this game, but this year's team found a way to get it done, even when they didn't play perfectly. He also talked about how tough Gardner Minshew is when he's on the move, and how the defense worked to contain him. Then Payton pointed out how the Raiders have some really good players, like Crosby and Bowers, but we didn't hear much from them during the game. He didn't directly say they were bad, but he did suggest that the Broncos' defense did a good job of shutting them down. Now, Payton's comments about not hearing much from Crosby and Bowers got some attention. While it's true that we didn't see Crosby or Bowers make many big plays in this game, I don't fully agree with the idea that they didn't have an impact. For Max Crosby, for example, just because a player doesn't rack up multiple sacks or grab attention on every single play, it doesn't mean they weren't contributing in other ways. When a player like Crosby is constantly being game planned against, that in itself is a sign of his skill and importance. As for Payton, I don't think he's trying to take a shot at Crosby or Bowers. He's just acknowledging how well the Broncos handled them. The fact that Crosby is being targeted by opposing teams only shows how much of a threat he is. Last season, for instance, people were quick to say that Crosby was shut down after one game, but those kinds of narratives rarely tell the full story. The truth is, Crosby's impact is far bigger than just the numbers on the stat sheet. If you watch the Denver Broncos game closely, and trust me, I've rewatched every single snap multiple times, you'll see that Max Crosby actually had a really strong performance. He made 177 positive plays, meaning plays where he directly impacted the game. What stands out when you watch the tape is how often he disrupts plays, especially in the run game. On several 1st and 10 plays, for example, Crosby blew up the play, causing the offense to lose yards. Instead of facing 2nd and 7, they're now facing 2nd and 13 thanks to Crosby's pressure. This is a big reason why the Raiders can stay competitive against tough teams, like the Broncos. Even when they're down, they're able to keep the game close, and Crosby plays a huge role in that. Not only did he shut down runs, but he also chased down screen plays and put pressure on the quarterback. Let's not overlook the fact that Russell Wilson is a good quarterback. Some people may want to downplay it, but Wilson is a solid QB, and you can see that in his performances. Now, while Crosby was getting pressure on him, Wilson was still making quick decisions, getting the ball out fast, or checking down when necessary. That's where the quarterback's play comes into the picture. If the QB can release the ball quickly, even the best defensive lineman can struggle to make an impact. Josh McDaniels pointed this out a couple of years ago, that even if your offensive linemen aren't the best, if the quarterback can get the ball out quickly and play within rhythm, it makes it harder for defensive linemen to make a mark. The Chargers did this in the first game of the season, and the Broncos used a similar strategy in this game, getting the ball out fast, running bootlegs to move away from Crosby, and even triple-teaming him at times. Max Crosby is having a huge impact on the game, but it often goes unnoticed. And that's why, when you see people on Twitter or Instagram calling him overrated or overpaid, it's easy to tell they're not seeing the full picture. It's important to realize that a lot goes into the game of football, different strategies, schemes, and game plans. Max Crosby often impacts what the other team does on the field. Coaches like Sean Payton have to recognize Crosby's talent and make adjustments, and Payton is a great coach, no doubt about that. Some people think Payton took a shot at Crosby, but I wouldn't call it a negative comment. He's just acknowledging that they were able to shut him down in that game. We'll see what happens next year when the Raiders are at full strength and everyone's healthy. Before I wrap up, I want to touch on a couple of things that have been confirmed recently. First, Tom Pelissero reported that the Raiders are planning to start Aidan O'Connell at quarterback on Friday. We discussed O'Connell yesterday and how he was practicing with the team. He did the walkthrough yesterday, which was closed to the media, but today's practice is open, and he'll be out there again. In my opinion, this is exciting news because I want to see what O'Connell can do under Scott Turner's guidance. I hate to say it, but we've mentioned this in several videos. Nothing is guaranteed for next year. It's not certain that we'll have a new coaching staff or a new quarterback. If O'Connell wins a couple of games by the end of this season, the Raiders could end up with the 15th overall pick, which might mean we don't draft a new quarterback. So it's possible O'Connell could be our starter next season. I'm not saying I fully agree with that scenario, and I'm not even convinced Antonio Pierce should be the coach, but it's likely to happen. I remember talking about this last year. I didn't want Pierce or Luke Gisay to be part of the team. But once it happened, I was open to seeing how it played out. I did say that Pierce could have success, but it all depended on his offensive coordinator. Obviously, things haven't worked out for the Raiders this season, but maybe Scott Turner can help turn things around. Perhaps Aidan O'Connell could be the quarterback that makes the difference. In the offseason, I said O'Connell seemed too slow to outrun defensive linemen, but this year, he looks faster than he did before. That's a positive sign moving forward. I have to admit, I was wrong about Aidan O'Connell not being able to outrun defenders. He's still not the fastest quarterback, and that's something that hasn't changed. But what's clear is that he could still lead the Raiders to victories if the quick game is executed properly. With Scott Turner as the offensive coordinator, the quick game should improve a lot compared to how it was under Luke Gisay, where it really struggled. This shift should help O'Connell succeed, especially considering his improved pocket awareness compared to someone like Gardner Minshew. With the best offensive line unit we'll have all season, those 5 starters who'll be playing against the Chiefs, O'Connell could have a real chance to show what he can do. Now moving on to some quarterback news. There was some buzz about Daniel Jones possibly coming to the Raiders, but Jordan Schultz reported that despite the Raiders' interest, Jones has eliminated Las Vegas from consideration. This is a bit of a twist, especially after Ian Rappaport suggested Jones could be a potential target for the Raiders. However, I trust Jordan Schultz more on this matter. He's an excellent source, and I've personally had conversations with him. He follows me, and I follow him on Twitter. For instance, Schultz told me that Malcolm Coe's injury was season-ending, even before it was confirmed by the media. The Athletic later reported that Coe would be back in 4 weeks, but Schultz's info turned out to be spot on when Coe was eventually ruled out for the year. So when Schultz says Daniel Jones isn't coming to the Raiders, I believe it. Does it really matter? Probably not, but it's worth noting that nothing is certain at this point, especially with the quarterback position. There's also been some chatter about this year's quarterback class. Some people feel that neither Caleb Williams nor Shedeur Sanders looks like a guaranteed first overall pick, and it's been compared to the 2022 draft when Kenny Pickett came out. The idea is that none of these quarterbacks are truly first-round talents, and even if you take one early, you might end up with a mistake. We've seen quarterbacks go in the top 5 in recent years who haven't lived up to the hype, so the same could happen this year. Some players like Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, Will Johnson, Abdul Carter, and Caleb Banks from Florida are being hailed as future superstars. They seem locked in for greatness, while the Raiders might be taking a risk by reaching for a quarterback in the draft. It's definitely a situation worth watching. That's one reason why some people thought Daniel Jones could have been a fit for the Raiders. Even if he's not having a great year, maybe a full offseason with a new offensive coordinator, whether it's Scott Turner or someone else, could help him turn things around and lead the Raiders to the playoffs next season. However, given where Daniel Jones is in his career, he seems more focused on finding a playoff team himself, which is fair. We'll see how everything unfolds. Now, I want to know your thoughts. Do you think Max Crosby is overrated? Is he really having a bad season like some people claim? And as we move forward, What are your expectations for the quarterbacks and the team overall? This week is going to be interesting. While the Raiders are likely out of playoff contention, we have a short week with a game on Friday. Plus, there's a holiday coming up, which makes things even more intriguing. We'll get a better sense of how much Aidan O'Connell can grow and how well the team is practicing. It's an exciting time, regardless of how things turn out. The Raiders are facing the Chiefs, a divisional rival, and there's always the chance to spoil someone else's season, which would be pretty sweet. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video.